Today we have Mr. Shekhar Avasthi. He's the Chief Data Scientist at Stat Labs in Facts and Data. He has spent more than 2 decades in this industry. So glad to have you here. And we really look forward to all the experiences that you can share with our audience today. Thanks for accepting our invitation, Shekhar.
My pleasure, Pratik. Good evening to you, and thanks for inviting me. I hope it will be useful to others.
It will
who
definitely.
See this.
It's an interesting topic that we're going to have a little bit of discussion today. What data science is, what data analytics is, what artificial intelligence is, what machine learning is, and what they are not. These are the terms which are the super hype terms in today's time. Everywhere, everybody is talking about these terms, either in terms of careers to make, or either in terms of using them to solve business problems. So starting with that, Mr. Shekhar, the first question I wanted to ask you was, how do you differentiate these different terms? You know, there are a lot of people who are confused regarding that.
Yes. So we must understand one thing, and that one thing is that people don't do data analytics for the sake of doing data analytics. So it's like, you don't go to a doctor saying that, okay, today I feel like visiting the doctor, so let me go to the doctor and say hi to him. I mean, you go to a doctor either for a routine checkup or when you need medical attention.
Absolutely right.
So similarly, data analytics is part of the wider gamut of what we call as decision science. And decision science is all about taking the right decisions. So in reality, all of us are data scientists and we don't even know that. So say, for example, if I have to take an early morning flight at 4 a.m., say, for example, what do? I think that, okay, 4 a.m. flight, so I have to be there at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m., depending on, it's international or national, whatever. Airport is about 30 kilometers from my place. So should I take an Ola or an Uber, or should I take my own car or ask my driver? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I take a suitcase that is this big or that big? Blah, blah, blah. What am I doing? I'm analyzing data. And why am I analyzing data? Because my objective is that I don't want to miss the flight. When you drive, you take hundreds of decisions simultaneously. What are you doing? You are analyzing data that, okay, the guy in front of me is about to, turn towards the left or towards right. Therefore, I should apply brakes, or, there is a pedestrian 100 meters ahead who's likely to jump, so I should slow down, etc., etc. What are you doing? You are analyzing tons of data simultaneously.
Absolutely.
And you want your decision to be right so that you reach your destination safe. So in that sense, decision science is all about taking the right decisions, and businesses are all up, be it business or be it government, it's all about taking the right decisions which optimize your gains, which minimize your losses, right?
Okay.
One aspect of that wider gamut of decision science is data science. And data science is all about identifying the right objective, and having identified the right objective, you identify the data that is available that will help you reduce the chances of error.
Okay.
Now, one thing that we must keep in mind is this: we will never ever be able to take the error rate to zero. We can reduce the probability, but we'll never be cent% right, because end of the day, we are not gods. So you end up making decisions which are more likely to be correct. What do you mean by correct? Correct in the context of your business objectives.
Absolutely.
That is what data science is all about. So let me share an interesting slide.
Sure.
And I think that will throw some light on this. So how does it work? It works by, you define the business objective. What do I want to do? Around that business objective, you identify what is the data that is available.
Okay.
Now, what data is available? It could broadly be 4 kinds: qualitative or quantitative, internal or external on the other extreme. Internal quantitative data, for example, could be your sales data. External quantitative data could be, the market data, or, industry data, how many cars have been sold in last month, that ways. Internal qualitative data could be the emails that customers write to you. External qualitative data could be the Facebook comment that someone has written on the page of the competitor.
Right.
Now, if you analyze all this, you end up taking the right decision by matching the four quadrants. So what does it mean? It means that data analytics is a multidisciplinary approach. Why? Because you are analyzing quality data and you are analyzing quantitative data. So you need statistics, mathematics, operations research, modeling techniques, simulation, natural language processing, blah, blah, blah. It is a tool agnostic approach.
Okay.
What does it mean? Most of the tools that you use, be it SAS family of tools, be it SPSS family of tools, be it R, NIME, Vika, whatever. Python, yeah, Python is not just a tool, it's a technique, I would say.
Yeah, okay.
So it is a language, right? So whichever be the tool that you use will lead you to near similar conclusion, because, end of the day, the statistical principles or the mathematical, of course, you also find that to some decimal points, tool one may differ from tool two, but I'm not going to.
Absolutely.
Wherever you need to take decisions, you need data science, be it marketing, be it HR, be it operations, finance, production, whatever it be. What does it mean? It means that it is cross-functional. And the fourth thing is that it is technique agnostic. You don't want to get lost in the, is it a statistics or is it mathematics or is it OR or is it this or is it that? You don't want to do that, isn't it? So end of the day, what you need is the right answer. So it's like this: when you go to your physician, you don't want to get lost in, what is the name of this bone or what is the name of that muscle or what is the name of that salt. That is what the physician does. So long as you are getting well, you are okay with it.
Absolutely.
So whichever technique you use, and at times a particular problem may need a mix of techniques. At times the same problem can be solved by technique A or B or C or D.
Okay.
And all those would be, nearly equally good.
Okay.
So in that sense, data science is multidisciplinary, it's tool agnostic, it's across the functional areas, and it is technique agnostic.
Okay.
Broadly speaking, that is what our concept of data science is.
Okay.
And that is how it should be done.
Okay. All right. I mean, a great presentation and a very simple definition as well that you gave for data science. Now, I want to ask you specifically, Shekhar, then how do you differentiate between these terms? Data science, data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So how do you differentiate between them?
Very, very good question. And I'm glad that you asked this question. So I'll share another slide on this.
Sure,
and
sure.
I hope that will be of help.
Sure.
So the entire gamut of data science, you can't do data science until you have data. So I can't take a decision about going to the airport unless I know that it is 30 kilometers or 20 kilometers away, unless I know that, the road is good or bad or whatever, unless I know that police has placed barricades or not or whatever, right. Isn't it?
Right.
So you need data to be able to analyze something. So data science starts with having the right data at the right place. So all the activities which is about data capture, planning, data structure, design, which are typically database activities.
Mm-hmm.
But these are pre-analytical activities. I have often come across organizations who are great at running some SQL queries,
mm-hmm.
and they claim to be doing data analytics. Why? Because in the query they are doing 2 + 2 = 4,
okay.
or something more complex than that.
Okay.
But the point is that something that is too obvious is, technically one can always say, because you are analyzing data, it is data science. But practically speaking, that is not what we commonly call as data science. Now, when you have all this data, what do you do? With all that data, you end up reporting something.
Right.
And you start reporting, and that is why you lead at the bottom of the pyramid, which is about reporting. And when you start reporting something, it is quite often using a Tableau or a Power BI or Google Explorer or whatever.
Right.
Whatever be the interface. At times, I have come across people creating some outstanding charts, even using Excel. So in Excel,
Absolutely.
you start creating some great pivot charts which serve your purpose well.
Right.
Now, when you're reporting, again, we don't commonly call it as data science. You can always argue that, well, you are analyzing data. You are telling me what was my market share yesterday and today, and therefore it is analysis. By that definition, you may be right, but commonly, it's such a simple thing to do that we don't really count it as analytics.
Okay.
Now you'll be able to create reports only when you are able to manage the report. So let's step one ladder up on this pyramid.
But
And managing the report,
it's an important step towards data science.
yes, it is a very important step because great. It's like this. You might be sitting with the greatest of the suites, but if the packaging is not right, or if the viewer can't see it,
Mhm.
I mean, it's of no use. So
Absolutely
it
right.
is where the user sees and feels the difference of the data science, right? Now, these reports or the visual interface would be right only when you are able to manage these reports well. So
Right.
someone has to decide on, I want to create a pie chart or a bar chart or a histogram or a this or a that or whatever. That is where management comes into play. Management as in managing those reports. So we
Absolutely.
are at the, second step from bottom on this
Yeah.
pyramid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, once you are able to manage that reports, part of it, we say that it is data science. Part of it, we say is too routine and too mundane.
Okay.
Why part of it is data science? Because you have to identify the key performance indicators or KPIs of the
Right.
business.
Right.
So we were advising someone, and this organization would typically always take care of how many dollars am I earning, and then our analysis suggested that was it's not the dollars that matter. You should ideally be focusing on volume. So first
Absolutely right.
3 years, your strategy should be to focus on volume. Look at the volume. Don't look at dollars. Dollars would follow automatically.
Right.
3 years down the line, shift the focus to profitability
Okay.
once you have captured the market. Now that is where our role it starts to coming in, right? The next step of that is once you are sitting with all that data, you want to make a prediction. What will happen tomorrow? So if I'm selling on Amazon, I want to know what is my sale likely to be today? Because if I know that I'm likely to expect a lower sale today, I can possibly take a corrective action and I can spend more on advertising. I can run some coupons. I can do some deals. I can do whatever and boost my sales.
Absolutely.
Alternatively, if my target was to sell 100 units today and I basis some initial 5 or 6 hours of data, I know that I'm likely to have 110 units. Now, if I have adequate inventory, I might still boost that sale to make it 116 units. But if
Mhm.
I'm running short of inventory, I might increase my price to get that sale down to something like 100 units because that is what I have.
Right.
So basically, being able to predict in the right manner, that is what prediction is all about.
Okay.
And the topmost of this is understanding what is causing
Okay.
what is the causal relationship. So correlations are fine, but
Right.
what is causing what?
Right.
If you understand all that, that is what data science is.
Right.
This is what summarizes the triangle of data science.
Okay.
But this is historical stuff.
Right.
Historical stuff, as in this is what we used to do 10 years back.
Okay.
Now, what happens is that currently you want to do something more. And you want to do something more means you want to go beyond understanding. And what do you mean by beyond understanding? You want to take some real time decisions. I just now gave an example that in case of an Amazon sale, for example, if I know that today's sale is likely to be 120 units or 90 units, I can take an action.
Right.
I want that decision to be taken automatically.
Okay.
Now, wherever the computers are deployed to take a decision that can happen kind of automatically,
Right.
we are talking of artificial intelligence.
Right.
But there is a catch. And the catch is about 15, 20 years back, when we wanted a computer, when I wanted that I place a printed document on the computer and computer should be able to read it as it converted to a text rather than an image, which is called optical character recognition. 20 years back, OCR was thought to be an artificial intelligence technique.
Absolutely.
Now, today, do you say that OCR is artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
You don't.
No.
Today, even your smartphone realizes, recognizes your handwriting,
Absolutely.
right? That is also OCR, isn't it? You just use your stylus and you do something, and the phone recognizes your handwriting. 15 years back, speech to text was considered as artificial intelligence, and there were medical transcription services working out of India as well,
Mm-hmm.
which were a big business. So the
Mm-hmm.
doctor there would do some dictation, and a person sitting here would hear that and type it out.
Right.
Today, whatever language you just talk to, you dictate to your computer and it takes the dictation. That time it was artificial intelligence. Today it is such a mundane technique that you don't call it as artificial intelligence. So the point is that as we move forward, this definition of artificial intelligence keeps changing.
Okay.
It is not a static definition.
Okay.
What is artificial intelligence today will not be may not be artificial intelligence tomorrow.
Okay. Okay.
And it is not a watertight definition. So
Okay.
someone
Yeah.
may still classify OCR or text to speech as artificial intelligence techniques. Someone may not. Majority do not classify it that way today.
Okay.
So similarly in analytics, a lot of times when you are making the real-time decision making, assume that I have got a software which analyzes what is my inventory, what is the sale likely to be, and takes an action automatically of reducing or increasing your price, or putting more money in advertisements or reducing the advertisement spend on Amazon, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to deploy that today, you can kind of say that, well, yes, maybe you can consider this as AI. It is a borderline case today. 5 years back, we implemented this on a tool, one of the world's largest online omni-channel marketing tool. Then it was considered to be AI. Today, it is a borderline case of AI.
Okay.
2 years down the line, you'll have so many tools doing that it will no longer be considered as AI.
Okay. So you're saying artificial, so these definitions with time, they may change.
Artificial intelligence has always been changing. Artificial intelligence by definition is at least 50 or 60 years back when it was coined. I don't have the date with me at the moment, unfortunately. It was coined then, and ever since it has been changing.
I remember in my engineering days, I think in 1999 or so, around that time, we had an elective on AI. And the only thing that we used to do there was that we used to create a rule engine so that, we could code we can create a game in C, which will, if somebody hits a ball in some direction, then the opposite player will actually go in that direction. So that used to be called as artificial intelligence, where there were just rules. It was a rule-based engine. There was no prediction.
And now, as on date, if you make those, then the rules were static. Static as in you code them and the rule stays there.
Yes.
Now, if over a period of time, the rules become dynamic, that taking various inputs, the equation of the rule changes.
Automatic.
That becomes the next generation of artificial intelligence. And in the times to come, God knows what all will get included.
Absolutely.
So that is what AI is all about. One of the most, so even today, when people, I've come across many organizations that implement a chatbot on their website.
Right.
And these chatbots are nothing but, many of them, majority of them, I'm not saying all, they are just rule-based search engines.
Right.
So you go to a chatbot and you ask, what is the home loan interest rate? And it will throw up 5 options in front of you: deposit rate, fixed deposit rate, personal loan rate, home loan rate, this, that. Maybe 3-4 years back, that was AI. But today, it spoils the customer experience, and maybe it can't really be considered as AI.
Right.
So in that sense, AI keeps changing. But I'd like to touch upon one more important thing that you touched, that is machine learning.
Okay.
So what is machine learning? Machine learning is wherever you are learning from historical data.
Okay.
So if you are putting a plot in Excel, wherein you have data for last 10 years, that last 10 years on a quarter by quarter basis, my sales was so many units or so many dollars.
Okay.
Basis that you at the click of the button, Excel can also plot it, and Excel can put a trend line into it.
Absolutely.
Now, when you put that trend line into it, you are seeing a trend that, and the line says that, okay, this is where you are likely to be headed. You are likely to go up by 10% or down by 5% or whatever it is. You're making a prediction based on historical data.
Right.
Believe it, many of us don't really understand that, but that is machine learning. Why? Because you are making a prediction based on historical data.
Okay.
Now, it is not the machine that is learning. It is basis your historical data, using statistics, it's just making a prediction that this is the direction that the trend line is headed for. So whenever you are doing a time series analysis, obviously based on historical data, whenever you are doing a regression analysis, again, obviously based on historical data, whenever you are making a prediction basis historical data, that is machine learning. Machine learning as a term would be, I think 1970s is when it would have been coined. But it was coined then. Machine learning is at least 10, 20, 30,000 years old.
Oh, really? How do
And
you say
why?
that?
Yes, 30,000 years back, when I don't know when dinosaurs were there or not, so excuse me for my limited understanding. But when an animal knew that I have to hunt for my food. So assume that there was a tiger some 20,000, 10,000, 15,000 years back. Over a period of time, the tiger knew that, near the water hole, animals would come to drink water either in the morning hours or in the evening hours.
Absolutely.
So I must hide myself there, and at that time, I'll make a jump.
Interesting.
After 5 or 10 hunts, the animal would have realized, and mind it, I'm talking of a tiger or a lion or a leopard or whatever you can think of. After 5 or 10 hunts, the animal would have realized that, boss, uh, if I try to attack the healthiest animal of the herd, my success rate is low. Now, remember, the animal doesn't know mathematics, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know how to compute.
Mm-hmm.
But over a period of time with experience, it is learning. And
Yeah.
then it says, okay, I will now attempt to kill the weakest in the herd because my chances of success are. They may not think along these lines exactly,
Okay.
but then they adapt to killing the weakest link.
Okay.
What is happening? Machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
You are learning from historical data. An infant, be it today or be it thousands of years back, an infant knows that if I am hungry and if I need milk, I have to cry. So 2, 3, 4 days it realizes, or n number of days it realizes, and thereafter, infant doesn't know how to communicate. He doesn't know anything about this planet. He only knows one thing: if I need something, I have to cry,
Right.
and it cries and it gets things done. Machine learning, what is it if not machine learning?
Okay.
Point is, wherever you are learning from historical data,
Okay.
it is machine learning.
So if there is
Just
no
that,
historical data, that
yeah,
means then there is no machine learning. Is that what we're trying to say?
yes, technically, absolutely yes, because machine learning depends on learning from the historical data. But practically, what we do is that we had come across some cases wherein you don't have historical data and still you want to create a predictive engine or a recommender engine, for example, or an early warning system, for example.
Yeah.
So what you do is that you create dummy data, and in dummy data you start with creating all the possibilities that exist,
Okay.
all
So more like
permutations combinations.
simulation.
No, simulation is different, and again, this is a concept. Simulation and synthetic data are two different terms. So I'll come to simulation as well.
Okay.
So what you start doing is that on the dummy data, you start creating certain all possible permutations combinations. So say, for example, if I have to create data for customers, I would say that the gender of the customer can be male or female or other. There is no fourth
Right.
possibility or not known,
Right.
maybe.
Right. Right.
So I'll create 4 levels in that gender column, and I'll
Mm.
statistically distribute them in 25, 25, 25,
Correct.
25, or whatever range.
Right. Right.
Similarly, if a customer has purchased through me or not purchased from me, it's a binary field. Customer name could be anything, so I can have possibly 1,000 levels in it, random, or 20,000 levels in it. Customer's age can only be between, say, 14, 15, whatever, lower limit, to say 100, 105 years. So, you spread across that range completely. Now you create all the possible permutations and combinations, and then you start with a rule-based engine.
Okay.
Once the engine starts giving predictions, you assess which predictions are going right, which are going wrong, and you start gathering data. So as a
Okay.
starting point, you start with a rule-based engine, you
Right.
start gathering data, and once you have the data, it is then that you create statistical and mathematical models which give you the right kind of answers.
Okay.
Coming to simulation,
Mm-hmm.
simulation is again something that is not, I think it is not fully understood.
Okay.
So I'll take an example of a nuclear reaction.
Okay.
If you remember, when we did some tests in Pokhran, I think in early 2000s,
Right.
what did we do? We did some tests and we placed hundreds of sensors in the test well.
Right.
Okay. And these sensors captured all kinds of data that we thought was required for us.
Right.
Okay. Now, under different conditions at different points of time, we were sitting with tons of data. That when the nuclear reaction starts, the temperature was this, then the temperature increased, and the pressure increased, and this happened, that happened, humidity went up, it went down, the critical mass was achieved, not achieved, blah blah blah. It took so many
Yeah.
cycles and all that stuff. Once you are sitting with that data, you do analysis and you create mathematical equations.
Mm-hmm.
Now in future you don't have to really redo the test. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're sitting with mathematical equations already, and
Mm-hmm.
using mathematical equations you can tweak the equations to know what will happen when. I'll give
Right.
another example of mathematical modeling and simulation, because the two things go fairly well. We know the speed of rotation of Earth, we know the speed of rotation of Earth along the axis and around the sun, and about other planets and everything else. So we are able to predict using pen and paper and computers, of course,
Okay.
when do you intend to have, when do you expect to have a sunrise tomorrow and a sunset tomorrow, and when do you expect a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse or whatever.
Right.
Now, assume that by changing some variables, you were able to make that eclipse happen.
Okay.
Assume that I knew that, these are the variables. So I can, if I were able to change the speed of Earth around the axis or around the sun or whatever,
Yeah.
whenever I need, I would have said, okay, we want an eclipse tomorrow. Okay, Earth, increase your speed, and then the eclipse happens tomorrow or whatever. Simulation is mathematically looking at an equation and being able to, without performing the actual experiment,
Right.
being able to perform what will happen.
Right.
So
That's
that is what simulation is. So it's not generally about dummy data or synthetic data. It's about making the prediction purely based on mathematical
right.
equation, or
So,
doing something that is not happening in the real life. Yeah.
so, Shekhar, very interesting definitions that you've given of data science, of machine learning, of what what data analytics is not, what could be construed as data science, and what cannot be construed as data science. And you showed us the pyramid, a very nice slides as well on that. Now, I'm, we deal with a lot of corporate houses. We, help them build large capabilities. We deal with a lot of young candidates, people who are aspiring to get into data science industry. Some of them are fresh out of college. Some of them are fresh, just young folks, like 2 to 3 years of experience, guys. Um, I want to, they always have this question that, okay, if you have to get into data science as an industry, right? What are the skills that I must learn to begin with? That's one question that I had for you.
Okay.
The second question, follow-up question, in that I'll just ask you, maybe you can cover them together. That a lot of times we get people, and we see as well that in the industry, when the data science teams are formed, there are people from various different backgrounds. They're not just computer science programmers, they're not just statisticians or mathematicians, but there are people from business background as well, there are people from sales background as well. So why does that happen when data science is so much about data and numbers and so forth?
Okay, so we must understand that's a beautiful question. I'm really glad that you asked that. Data science, we covered that, it's a wide thing. You want to take the right decision,
Right.
right? But when you want to take the right decision, one thing is that you need data, and the other thing is that you need the sign art to interpret that data.
Okay.
So data science is science plus art.
Okay. Well,
So the science of being able to analyzing the data, and
right.
the art of being able to converting that analysis into actionable insights,
Right.
right? Now, if say, for example, I were to predict the sales of Amazon,
Right.
right? One thing is that I have data that, okay, at 6 a.m., so many units have been sold. This is the kind of site traffic, Google Trends, this is what is happening, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, I can expect to sell so many units.
Okay.
But you also need an analysis of, an understanding of, what is my competition doing. If my competition is deploying deals today, I might not get that sale. If I am deploying a deal or I'm spending too much on advertisements today, maybe I'll exceed my sales or something like that, isn't
Right.
it?
Right.
So you need the ability to understand the marketplace,
Okay.
how Amazon is working. You need to to know the ability to understand the competition, for example, amongst other things, right? So I'll share a slide that will
Sure.
possibly, help in uh, distinguishing between these two. So, and I think that'll So, data science is all about analyzing data, and this has been taken from social media. This
Yeah,
is this is not my chart,
yeah,
but I
seen it.
found this to be right. So, what happens is that you want to analyze data, right? Now you want to understand the business objective. How do you understand the business objective? You understand it by wearing a consultant's hat.
Okay.
So you have to talk to the business stakeholders that what your real objective is. And stakeholders don't really, quite often, they don't know what the real objective is.
Right.
So quite often when people come to us and they say we want to do a customer satisfaction survey or employee engagement survey, the real business objective is that they are losing out market share or the attrition rate is too high.
Right.
And they believe that if I do the satisfaction survey or engagement survey, I'll be able to contain my uh, uh, customer attrition or employee attrition.
Okay.
So you have to know the real business objective. It's like this. I might go to a physician saying that, I have got a headache.
Right.
Now it is for the physician to identify that this is because of migraine, this
Right.
is because of a pulled nerve, or is it because of a brain tumor?
Right.
Right? So at first you wear a consultant's hat. You have to be consultant. I'm talking the entire spectrum, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, having identified the business objective, you have to collect the data around it, which I showed in the previous slide, quali,
Right.
quanti, internal, external.
Right.
How do you collect data? In today's world, we are sitting with so much of data
Right.
all around us
Yeah.
that to collect the data, you would either scrape it or you
Right.
would extract it from a SQL database or something.
Right.
So in that sense, you need programming skills.
Okay.
Programming skills meaning that, so first thing I spoke about is the business skills or the consultant skills. The second skill is the second ellipse, which is the programming skill. Because when I started my career 25 years ago, I started as a market researcher.
Okay.
Now, then, whenever businesses used to have any problems, they would go to the market, come to an agency like ours where I was working for, and they would say, boss, this is the problem. I want to understand the market. We would say, okay, let's do a survey.
Sure.
We would merrily go out, create a questionnaire, go out, ask questions, come back. Why? Because data wasn't available that much readily, and every time you had to dig the well afresh to get water.
Right.
Yeah. Over a period of time, what has happened is that data is available everywhere. Organizations have their historical sales data for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Organizations capture a lot of data.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of data is available on Facebook and Twitter about what people are saying and what they are not saying and all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
lot many things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can't get that data manually.
Mm-hmm.
You can't deploy 100 people who would read post by post by post to say, okay,
Right.
Ram is saying this and Sham is saying this. You don't do it that way.
Right.
So you need programming skills to
Right.
extract data, to scrape data, to collect data.
Right. Right.
Now, this data you'll be able to analyze only if it is in analyzable form.
Truly.
Therefore, you need data engineers who would clean this data, who
Right.
would put it in a form that is analyzable, who
Right.
would do some quality checks and all that stuff.
Right. Right.
So there comes the role of a data engineer.
Good point.
And I have already spoken of a role of a consultant. I have already spoken of a role of a data scraper or
Data
a
scraper or
SQL
SQL
programmer
programmer. Yeah. Yeah.
and all that. Now comes my data engineer who
Right.
knows this is my data. I have to clean it and I have to bring it to this shape.
Right.
And he merges data from multiple streams and all that stuff.
Right.
So we are talking of a data engineer,
Right.
typically. Now, once that data is in the right form, here it is written as statistics because I didn't create this, but you would say a subject matter expert.
Okay.
So you need someone who could do statistical analysis or mathematical modeling or operations research or econometric or psychometric or whatever is needed in that particular context.
Okay. Okay.
Now, what technique would be used is a function of business objective. What are you trying to do?
Okay.
It's like this. If I'm playing cricket, then rules of the game are that if ball hits my leg, I am out.
Yes.
If I'm playing football, rules of the game are that if my hand hit the ball, I am out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to have someone who knows the rules of the game.
Okay.
Which means that depending on the context, you need either a statistician or a mathematician or a market research. If data is not there, what do? You go out and do survey. So at times you need market research as well.
Yeah.
right? At times you need econometric guy, you need a psychometric guy if you're doing a psychographic segmentation or something, right? Depending on what you are doing, you need a subject matter expert. Now, having done all this, you can't go back to the client and communicate it without, in such terms. So a doctor doesn't come to you and says that, your tibia and fibia are this and therefore this has happened. So what does he say? He says that there are two bones, one bone is going here, one bone is going there. We are trying to reduce the gap. We have to fix it or blah, blah, blah. If a doctor starts talking to you in terms of, in core medical terms, you don't understand it.
Absolutely.
A guy who's able to go back and tell the client in a lingo that they understand while convincing them that everything has been done the right way. It is scientific what I'm talking about. But I'm not talking of all science. In simple terms, this is what it is. So in that sense, in the entire project, you need a consultant, you need a technocrat, multiple technocrats in fact, you need subject matter experts, you need communication guys. You merge all of them together, and there you have a data scientist, which is a match of all these four eclipses. But this is such a wide spectrum that everyone has a role to play.
Absolutely.
And for everyone, there is enough space to play. So that is why you need industry experts. That is why you need domain experts. That is why you need functional area experts. So say, for example, if I'm doing marketing analytics, I need someone in my team who understands marketing and the lingo and what happens and doesn't happen, blah, blah, blah. If I'm doing HR analytics, I need an HR specialist. Absolutely. If I'm working for textiles, I need someone who knows that industry so that he can help.
Absolutely. Very good point.
So that is the reason that you need so many people. And believe me, all the people that I spoke about, there are so many roles available for all of them. That every mark, so it's like, data analytics is like multiple islands that are connected together. But people living in every island believe that, this is so, okay, I'll share one more interesting slide that, because, that is my, so this is the story of 7 blind men who were asked to touch an elephant and say what it is. So someone who touched the legs of the elephant said that this appears to be like a wooden log. Another person who touched the tail of the elephant said it looks to me like a rope. Someone who touched the ears of the elephant said that it looks like a fan. Fan as in the old handheld fan I'm talking about. Someone who touched the trunk said what it looks like a snake because it is too thin. All of them were right. But data analytics is this. A data analyst sees an elephant as an elephant, not as a wooden log or a snake or a rope or whatever.
So that person would be the data scientist, right? Who can actually see the complete picture end to end.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes. But unfortunately, what is happening is that if, and I say this quite often, if I stop at a red light and I say, all the data scientists, please raise your hands, I'm sure that 50 guys would raise their hands at any. So, that is it.
No, a very good explanation there, Shekhar. And I like the fact that, you said that it's a multidisciplinary team. It's not that just one person needs to have all the skills. If you have a little bit of all the skills and specialize in one, that is also
great. That is great.
Yeah. But that's the reason why we see that in companies, there is a mixed set of people who actually form the data science team. And that's what exactly we keep telling our clients, keep telling our young aspirants as well, students as well, that please do not just focus on just learning coding or just learning statistics or just learning business. It's a multidisciplinary thing. You have to keep yourself aware about what is going on in the business world. You also have to learn the statistical and mathematical modeling, and you also have to learn the coding bit of it as well. You just don't have to be a computer engineer or a econometrics person to get into this. You've got to have, as you said, communication, right? It's such an important data storytelling. If you don't do that, then how do you convince others? Very good.
I would like to add one thing. One of the biggest misconception is that, you have to be only a coder, as you said, or, you have to be an engineer to be a data scientist. Right. Reality is technology is just a facilitator.
Okay.
Technology is not data science.
Right.
Technology helps you do that. Why? Because today, if I were to sit with data of 500,000 clients, I can't do the average manually. I can't say this plus this plus this divided by 500,000 is my average order value is this.
Right.
Data is so huge. I
Right.
can't do that. Now, with that context, technology helps, but technology is not data. It is like this. When you drive a car, it's a beautiful piece of mechanical engineering,
Right.
right? And automobile engineering. But automobile engineering is not car.
Yes.
Driving a car is not automobile engineering. They
Mm-hmm.
are, they don't. So I may be a rally driver, I may be a Formula One driver, I may be the best driver of the globe,
Mm-hmm.
and I may not really understand the technology behind it.
Good point.
And I can possibly be the best engineer. I would have
Not
created the
right.
best car, but I may not be the best driver.
Yeah. Very good point.
So the
Absolutely.
technology is only a facilitator.
You're right.
It's not the end objective. Unfortunately, what we find is that most of the organizations, because data facilitates, without data you can't do analytics, and data typically would sit in IT department. Organization after organization, I've come across that the analytics team sits inside the technology team.
Right. Right. They're part of IT. They
They
consider
are
that.
quite often they are part of IT, and that is the most suicidal thing that can happen to any organization. I mean,
Very.
nothing against the IT guys. I mean, without them, you can't expect to run your business. But they have their own strengths. Analytics is a different ball game altogether,
Yeah.
and the
Absolutely.
two, have to be segregated.
Absolutely. You're right. Very well said. That technology and analytics. So analytics actually ends up solving business problem, right?
Yes.
So technology is just an enabler, and that was my next question that you just addressed already, which is that I mean, a lot of people say that do I need to be a coder in order to get data science into data science? And we keep saying that no, data
No.
science is multidisciplinary, right?
Yeah.
Coding is just one of the
So I
enablers.
have come across some of the best guys, some of the best data scientists who rely on tools like SPSS, which require you to do very little of coding.
Right, right,
I have come across some of the guys who are wonderful coders and are also wonderful data. So the two things, if they overlap, it is good. If you're a good coder and a good data scientist, it's
right.
wonderful, nothing bad in that.
Yeah,
But if you're not a coder and still want to do data science, perfectly okay.
absolutely right.
So,
Absolutely.
there is a field for you.
Yeah, yeah. One more question for you, Shekhar, since we are in the subject. A lot of times we come across with people who have deep understanding of a particular domain. Say, for example, doctors, for example, clinical researchers, for example, sales and development guys who have spent like a decade or a half a decade in banking. Now they are aspiring to get into data science, of course, because of all the hype around it. And many times we've seen them being successful. What is your take on it? Can people from different experiences get into data science, and what is their career path look like?
If you look at my chart that I just showed,
Yeah.
there is a space for everyone.
Yes.
So depends on which space you want to play in. So there
Mhm.
is a role for everyone, there is a space, and there is a wide field available for everyone.
Very good.
Assume that you have a seasoned HR professional who is also learned analytics and is now doing HR analytics. But the poor fellow lands up in an organization where the focus is clinical research. Now that guy may find himself to be out of place. Why? Because he's a great HR analytics guy, but he may not really know or understand the nuances of clinical research, and vice versa.
Right. Right.
So there is a space for everyone. The domain specific, domain experts, they have to invest something in it, something as in they know the domain, but they have to understand the data science and the decision science, etc.
Right.
Maybe with coding, maybe without coding, depending on their interest. But
Right.
point is that there is a space for everyone, and data science is like a bouquet of
Skill.
variety of flowers put together.
Right. Very good point. Very well said. One more question in the same line. A lot of people are asking us that what has happened in the in the pandemic time. Has things changed at all in the data science industry? I mean, if you can shed some light on it.
Okay, so things have changed for the better, I would say, in data
Okay.
science industry. Because whenever what happens, assume that I'm going on a trek and I meet with an emergency situation, something like a Kedarnath tragedy.
Right. Right.
What do you want now? You want to take better, well-informed decisions.
Right.
So whenever tragedy strikes you, the importance of taking the right decision increases many
Absolutely.
folds.
Very good. Very well said.
Now also what has happened is that this pandemic is going to change us in lot many ways,
Right.
many ways, right? As a result of this shock that we were not experiencing, we as in the industry in general, what has happened is that the need to take the right decisions has gone up many folds, and therefore the need to do the data analytics the right way has also gone up many folds. So in that sense, my sense is that whatever I see around, data analytics is one of those industries which is perhaps positively impacted by this, and there is a lot of demand that I see
Okay.
in the current scenario. I believe that that demand is likely to continue for another at least 10 years.
Okay. 1 decade. Yeah.
Why? Because after 10 years, there'll be so many people knowing it and so many
Right.
things would have been automated and stuff that it would be kind of commodity item. Commodity as in 10 years, 15 years from now, if you say that, okay, I'm a data scientist, you will say, okay, I've got 10 others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how it happened to network engineers in the
Yes.
IT world.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So, how it happened to say, for example, SAP, for example,
Yeah. SAP
10
ERP guys.
years back or 15 years
15
back,
years.
there was a
Yeah.
lot of demand. You would have seen that. Of course, they are in demand now as well,
Mm-hmm.
but that hype is gone.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
believe that the true thing is still at least 10 to 15 years away.
yeah, good, good. Last question for you. You gave us a lot of great examples and analogies and stories about data science industry. One last question. I know you interview a lot of people as well for your own organization. You consult others as well as to how to interview. What is your favorite question to ask? A data scientist or maybe somebody who's aspiring to become one.
Depending on his expertise area. So, say
Yeah,
for example, if a person comes to me with a and claims to have a statistics background,
yeah, yeah.
I would, rather than asking the technical questions, I would say, okay, here is an ANOVA table. Now,
Okay,
tell me what do you mean by degrees of freedom?
okay,
Tell me what do you mean by sum squared? Why are you using SS?
okay.
Why are you not just summing it as such?
Right, right.
Tell me all the terms of this ANOVA table.
Okay,
How have you arrived at, the mean sum of squares? How have you arrived at, various things, various terms that are there? My biggest, because, we are in a very niche area wherein we do real advanced analytics in
right.
algorithm development and all that stuff. So from our context, what is most important is that the fundamental knowledge, anyone can drive a tool.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'll cite an example, and this is an interesting one. I was interviewing someone, and one of my favorite techniques is that we never interview face to face, at least initial 2, 3 rounds.
Okay.
Why? Because you tend to get influenced by the look and feel of the person,
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
and unnecessarily, why bother a person, right?
Right.
So 1 round or 2 round we have telephonic,
Okay.
and then we give a small project to do,
Okay.
and then we do some discussions on that. It is towards the end that if it is needed, we do either a VC or meet the
Right.
candidate.
Right. Right.
So I was interviewing a lady, and I gave her some data to analyze, and this data had nominal data in terms of cities. So Delhi was one, and Mumbai was two, and I said that, okay, this is the data. How would you analyze it? Get the gist out of it and create a short PPT. I'm not really concerned about the quality of the PPT, but I'm more concerned about
The
how
insight.
you get the insights.
Mhm.
And when it came back to me, I couldn't believe laughing. It said the mean city is 3.5. So what the lady had done was that, if you ask mean for a nominal data, the computer would give you mean for a nominal
Yeah.
data, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it said, okay, the mean city is 3.5. I said, what do you mean by that? Average of cities was this. So we look at fundamentals. We look at, uh, so if a person comes to us as a hardcore coder, for example,
Mhm.
then the dimension would be completely different. So it all
Right.
depends on, what a person is coming up.
Right. Right.
But we typically look at absolute fundamentals. Is he able to tell us the story behind what is visible?
Okay. Okay.
In our organization, for example, we are not looking at people who would just, if I ask you to run a binomial regression and you run it and come back to me that, okay, this is done, I'm not really interested.
Okay.
Are you able to tell me the story? Are you able to explain that?
Okay.
So that is what our focus is.
Very good.
But of course, you know, organizations differ. Many
Yeah.
organizations have a very different focus,
Right.
and by any standards, neither we nor anyone else is a benchmark.
No, I
Every
understand.
organization has
Yeah.
its own way of assessing people, which suit their needs, their specific needs.
But Shekhar, you know what I have observed after talking to so many people in the last decade and a half, and consulting with people, you know, a few skills are common across everybody. Like you said, right? They should be able to tell a story behind what they have
Yes.
done, right? So data
Yeah.
storytelling is such an important skill set to exhibit.
Yes.
You know, if you do
Yes.
not exhibit that, if you do not
Then
articulate, then you know, the interviewer will not understand what you have done and why you
yes.
have done.
Please understand the consumer of data analytics is a guy who's running a business.
Truly
So he
right.
may be a chief marketing officer, he may be a chief HR officer, he may be a chief whatever officer, finance officer or whatever. Now, poor fellow has got 5,000 other things to do in life. You know, unless you are able to tell him in one slide that what you're talking about, maybe you know you're talking of all rocket science or whatever, but the guy is interested in, yeah, rocket urta hai ki nahi, does it fly? I mean, does it go up?
Very good point.
If you're able to tell that,
Yeah.
he's okay. If you are able to talk about, you know, this engine or that engine or aerodynamics or weight and dry weight and this and I mean, he would not understand. He would not have time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very good.
So that is the context that we have to keep in mind. So communication is indeed important, but at the same time, I have come across lot many people who are great coders or programmers or data analysts or data engineers, but they genuinely lack in communication.
Communication. Yeah.
So
Thanks.
the way we are structured is that we have a variety of people, you know, some who are
Right.
great at communication, some are not so great, but they are great in other things.
Right. Right.
These guys who are not great at communication, not that there is no space for them,
Right.
but maybe they are not so fit for the client facing role.
I understand.
So within the technical team, they are able to, you know, communicate well.
Right. Right. But they should be able to explain, you know, what
Yes.
technical algorithm they have worked upon and why have they chosen that algorithm?
Yes.
What is the
Why
business?
not
What will
something
be the
else?
business impact of it?
Yes.
Maybe not with the best vocabulary or the sentences, but they should be able to
Yeah.
tell the reasons behind that.
But they must know, they must at least, you know, they must be convinced, why am I doing what am I doing?
Absolutely right. You're right.
So that is what it is.
Shekhar, pleasure having you here. We have hosted so many people in our channel, and but you know we haven't come across with many people who can explain with so many great examples. We have spoken about very complex subjects, very complex terminologies, but you have given a very simple explanations to these terminologies with great analogies and great stories. Thanks a lot, Shekhar, for accepting our invitation and for this great session today.
Pleasure was all mine. I'm truly humbled by your kind words of appreciation. So if it helps others, I'll obviously feel great about it. Thank you so much. It has been a very great, I mean, it's been a wonderful session for me. It's been so interactive. I didn't realize that it's almost, you know, 55 minutes or so
Yeah.
into the session.
Yeah.
So it's a great session. It's been a great experience for me as well. Thank you so much. And I wish everyone who intends to become who is an aspiring data scientist, the very best of luck. I would only say that, you know, if you're really passionate and persistent, there is nothing that can stop you, and there is a space for everything. So
Great.
best wishes to all the aspirants, and thank you so much once again for such an engaging session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shekhar. And guys, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Just click on subscribe. Thanks a lot, Shekhar. Thank you.
Thank you so much.